All right, guys, we are live. This is the UFC 298 live recap show on Sherdog.com. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of Sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I am doing just fine. What a hell of a night of fights we just had. Plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I apologize for not giving you the proper introduction. I should have said the consensus greatest podcaster.
Oh my
That's why I'm
goodness.
not as professional as John Anik. UFC 298, and I know there's supposed to be news about UFC 300 tonight. What that is, I don't think the news is going to be very satisfying for MMA fans, but UFC 298, obviously it's only February, so I'm not going to say most stacked card of the year so far, anything like that. But on paper, one of the most stacked cards ever. The main event, one of the most intriguing main events. We've had both of us pick that one wrong. Overall, I think we both went 10-2 on the day, so it's still a pretty good. Right, you only had 2 losses.
We both got Kopylov versus Hernandez wrong.
Okay.
I assume we both get a mulligan on Tafa versus De Lima since they replaced the fine Tafa they normally serve with like decaffeinated Folgers crystals Tafa.
No. If I picked De Lima to win, I'm taking that as a win. I picked his brother, so beating up the little brother. Anyways, I went 10-2. I think you were roughly around that too.
Yeah, I got one right. Hibeto versus Zhang on the undercard. I picked Hibeto, so that's it.
All right, so you went 3. Okay. So 9-3, 10-2, really good night of fights.
Good nights.
Stat card, top to bottom, big stars, like everything you wanted in a card. They kind of came in. I thought it delivered. I'm not going to give an A or anything like that, but I'm going to go I'm going to go right to the grade. I'm going to go like a B plus, man. I'm very happy with the night, and I'll save your card and the rest of the listeners' cards for later on. But what I was trying to say is, like, UFC 298 was loaded. I mean, you guys, one of the reasons you talk about UFC 300 with them struggling to get it stacked and this and that, a lot of that has to do is because UFC 298 was loaded. 2 months before you have this big card, you load up this one. Alex Volkanovski, one of the greatest fighters of all time, taking on probably, I don't want to say on paper his toughest challenge because how could you look past Max Holloway, but one of the ones we were like, this guy's as legit as it comes. And that dude showed as Ilia Topuria wins by second round TKO or KO, puts Alex Volkanovski out cold with a left hook overhand right combination. He is now. I know the trouble I'm going to have is he has a Valentina Shevchenko thing going on where he represents like 97 countries, so I'm never gonna know which one which one to say, but Spain, Georgia, born in Germany, a bunch of other things. He is your new champion, undefeated, now 15-0, just beat the consensus greatest featherweight champion of all time. Dude, is this a good thing for the UFC? Because I think it is.
Yes, it's a good thing for the UFC. Absolutely. Couple of reasons, and let's give a little bit of shine to the fight in the first place before going too far down there. You said on the preview, and it's not like I put up any argument, that this is the best matchup that could be made in MMA right now without crossing divisional or promotional lines. Like this was it. Like, you look at these two guys, name me one thing that either of them doesn't do at least a very good level, and they do most things at an elite level. There's no clash of styles. There was no this guy's strength versus that guy's weakness. The only real thing in the balance was one guy was older, the other guy didn't have as much 5-round fight experience. Other than that, it's two of the more perfect fighters in the sport right now. Like, and it delivered. Like, for a fight that was over, most of the way through the second round, it was so tense throughout. And you got to see the best of both guys. Topuria came out to a super fast start. I said on the preview, Volkanovski, between him and his coaches, he's the best prepared fighter in the sport. Like, I'll take them over anybody to give me 3 months to prepare for fighter X. And you know what? There's no amount of film study. There's no amount of carefully tailored sparring partners that can prepare you for the speed and power of Topuria. But so obviously he was taken aback by that early on. Topuria really did have him on his heels for about the first 2 or 3 minutes, but then you saw he stayed calm. He made adjustments. I gave Topuria the first round, but
Okay.
I thought the momentum had shifted. I thought Volkanovski, however tenuously, was back in the driver's seat by the end of the first round. And that seemed to be the case going into the second round as well, right up until the point where he was sleeping.
Yeah. So when I was watching, obviously I'm a sports fan. Football is such a big sport here in America. I grew up in New England, so obviously I'm a Patriots fan. Recently, they kind of been the team of the decades for the last 2 decades. So I got to experience many Super Bowls. I felt like I was watching a Super Bowl where, when you're watching every play matters, you're like, clapping your hands when they get a first down or they get like a, 1st and 8-yard run. You're like, oh, that's great. That's how I felt watching this fight.
Oh, dude, this was better than the Super Bowl we just had. The Super Bowl we just had was the 2 best teams in the league, and it was close. It came down to overtime, but it was only close and suspenseful because both of them made a ton of mistakes in the second half.
Sure.
This was like 2 guys that really came and just put their best foot forward, and the best man tonight won.
Yeah, so I was watching and I was, studying both these guys as they fought, and I kept thinking to myself, like, yeah, like Volkanovski's making the adjustments exactly you said. He started really throwing the jab. He was beating him to the punch, and then he started going first and third. He'd go first, he'd slide back, go third, and it was working really well. The leg kicks, the keep resetting, not kind of trying to get Topuria so he can't set his feet, kind of moving around because he's, when you get a power puncher, they need to get their feet underneath them. So move, kind of get him to chase you, then try to beat him to the point of the punch. I thought Volkanovski was doing everything correctly, except for the one thing that Dean Thomas, and shout out to Dean Thomas. I say that I'm broken. I think Dean Thomas is the best thing on the broadcast. I feel like he's always right.
He's always right, and he's always blunt without being like Dominic Cruz, like pissing your Wheaties unpleasant about it. But if someone is making mistakes, if someone could be better coached, he's happy to say it 10 feet away from the guy's actual coaches.
Yeah.
I love that. My only question is, how is this guy not one of the 5 most in-demand coaches in the sport? Because he runs a successful ATT affiliate, but he's produced like 1 champ, Tyron Woodley. Like, how are people not beating down this man's door?
Yeah, there might be other factors to it. Who knows? But he said the one thing that he was concerned was that Volkanovski is pulling his head straight back when he kind of started getting swarmed with big shots. So Topuria was fighting in bursts. He was getting beat to the punch. He started. There's a little portion of time he was having successful leg kicks, but he kind of got away from it because Volkanovski was moving and he made adjustments and changing his stance. So we kind of had him guessing. But that's the one thing yet. He had a lot of feints, and I was saying to myself, I'm like, man, he's got to get starched. One of these feints, he's got to catch him. And then he did exactly what Dean Thomas said. He said he's got to swarm him. He landed a big left, followed it with a perfect right. The way Volk was moving back right to the cage, he couldn't pull his head straight back, and anymore, or he couldn't get away. The exits were limited, so he kind of, for a brief moment, it was like he he trapped a wild animal in like the corner of the shed. That's how you get him. And I mean, he had the tranquilizer, and he put him out. So I don't think Volkanovski looked bad at all. I just think he had to be perfect. I think as the fight went on, the chance of 2 things happened. The chance of him being perfect would have been less likely, but on the flip side, like the ability of Topuria to land the one good shot, put him out, like kind of goes both ways. Like that lessens.
Yeah.
The problem is, I mean, like I actually scored the first for Volkanovski, and I'm okay with anybody scoring for Topuria. Super close. But man, this kid 15-0 just be, whether you want to argue Volkanovski or Aldo, whatever, one of the greatest fighters who ever lived.
Yeah.
Put him out. And the reason why I asked is this good for the UFC? The way you market Volkanovski is a success. That's how you market him. It's not his personality. He's got a good personality. Like the whole thing with the, sleeping at the press conference, acting like, oh man, that was fun.
It was.
Very funny. But like his star power can only go so far. This kid acts like a star. The documentary about my run to win the title and calling himself a champ, and kind of a Spanish version of Conor McGregor's rise.
Oh, it was very reminiscent when he started snatching the belt from Volkanovski
Yeah,
during
like,
fight week,
before.
exactly like Conor did to Aldo. And it was never going to get a reaction out of Volkanovski like Conor did to Aldo, because
Sure.
I mean, Conor had been setting up that 13-second knockout for about 6 days. As soon as he started really, really pissing Aldo off. But
he might have been saving it up for like 9 months or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. They had been face to face, but like it didn't work as a mental game on Volkanovski necessarily, but as something they're going to be able to show on his sizzle reel ahead of his first title defense, it paid off. I agree. He's making a place for himself as a star, and it's the kind of stardom that at least right now is going to be dependent on him continuing to win. Like being this arrogant is only cool as long as you're destroying everybody, but there's no concern about that right now.
Yeah. The other thing that Topuria has going for him, which I love, is, like I said, I joked about the Valentina Shevchenko represent a bunch of countries. I mean, you saw the live. I think I saw it on Twitter. I don't know if it was on the pay-per-view broadcast. The amount of people that was meeting in the center of wherever Georgian city at 7 a.m. to watch him fight. Was, so you have a whole, not a very big country, but a small country, in the other side of the world cheering for him like crazy, like adopted son. And then you have Spain, which is obviously a, kind of one of the mega powers or something, one of the most popular countries in the world, who kind of been, waiting for a star other than, soccer and maybe some other sports I don't follow. They didn't really have that. Now they do. He's talking about bringing MMA to Spain. Again, we kind of get that a lot with any star in a new country. They kind of make that big spiel, but if that happens, I mean, that would be huge. And then the age. I mean, he's young, he's undefeated, which always goes a long way. Yeah, the guy speaks 2 different languages, which speaking. Actually 3. I mean, I don't know what Georgian speak, but
they speak Georgian.
Okay.
Yeah. They have their own language, but most of them speak Russian as well. Yeah.
Okay. So he speaks 3 or 4 languages. Who knows how many languages he speaks? I mean, just speaking in Spanish goes a long way with not just Spain, but South American countries and Central American countries. And yeah, I think this is a absolute, and the whole age. The 35-year-old Volkanovski, you kind of got everything, you drained everything you could out of that guy. And now we got a new star. I mean, I think it's tremendous.
No, completely agree. And John Butterfield, who of course is European, and several other people are mentioning Spain is huge in some sports, like they're massive in soccer. They've produced some of the greatest tennis players, but combat sports, like the best Spanish boxer, the best Spanish kickboxer, Spain is not really a power in like Olympic wrestling. They have a decent judo scene. Like the gap between Ilia Topuria and the second greatest Spanish combat athlete of all time, I mean, it's probably still Vega from Street Fighter 2, and all he really had was those suplexes and the claws on his hands. Neither of which are okay in one championship, and only the slams would be okay in like the UFC. So, yeah, Topuria is already carving out a place in history for himself here.
Yeah, Ninja Kitty points out that Spain has Juan Espino. We forgot about that. That was a star for the UFC.
He's fighting his retirement fight like this week. I think it's him against Bigfoot Silva. Both men retire, and it's in the Canary Islands. So
yeah, Bigfoot Silva. Oh man, he might die. He's gonna die in the cage.
Chase Thomas. Nobody likes a pedant. I hadn't played that game in literally 25 years. Okay, he only had one hand claw. Good grief.
Okay,
good man. It's good to see you on the show.
nice job. Yeah, I mean, his feints, his speed, his power. This is 2 or 3 times we've seen him, walk off knockouts. The other thing is he's got this great wrestling background we didn't even see.
Nope.
which
Not
is
a bit of it.
obviously fun to have in your back pocket. Let's move over to Volkanovski because you know this sport. When you get kind of depending. I always say this. People ask me like, "Who do you cheer for?" I don't cheer for really anything. I have such a high respect for MMA that I really don't cheer for one guy or the other. I cheer for my picks usually, but after I lose one fight, like I don't really. Okay, that was fun. Like I'm trying to go undefeated so I can brag on the recap. But uh, so I want to talk about what's the most exciting thing to talk about. And I kind of have, we're doing the show, been doing this a long time. We don't plan. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen, so we don't plan it. But I kind of have ideas. Okay, if this happens, I can kind of bring up, if Volk won, I was going to bring up like, is he in our Mount Rushmore? Is he, debate Aldo and him and stuff like those kind of things I had. And then Topuria, I had a couple other things. So, they just announced Alex Bahia versus Jamal Hill for the UFC main event. I'm assuming that's UFC 300.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the main event, UFC 300.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. It's a good fight.
Yeah. Okay. What I was kind of hoping to happen was, and we'll go back to the UFC 290. I definitely don't want to go too far down UFC 300 rabbit hole, especially at this time of night. But what I was hoping was that because they knew they weren't going to get that megastar, the Connors, the comeback of Ronda or something like that, what I was hoping that would be like, oh, we don't have that main event that's really going to go over. It's going to blow our mind, like Dana White said. I was hoping they're going to give us 2 title fights, like give us this and Bilal and Leon Edwards.
Yeah, I mean that'd be great, but
Yeah,
we get what we get.
Yeah, whatever. It's still a good card. Anyways, back to so as I'm watching and I'm seeing them picking up Volk off the ground, I just kept thinking like, yeah, you have the highest moments. You have, I mean, it seemed like everybody from the country of Georgia was in the octagon at the end of the win for Topuria. Then you have Volkanovski, and I just think like, wow, how everything can come to a collapse in an instant. 6 months ago, we were saying, is this guy the pound for pound best fighter in the world? Is he? I was thinking about if he won this fight, am I putting him on my Mount Rushmore? Okay, all kinds of stuff. To now, the questions are: is his chin gone? Is he washed? Is he filling all the blanks, the negative blanks? So let me ask you, like, moving forward, I mean, the guy's 35 years old. He's lost 2 fights in a row. He's lost 3 out of 4. I guess he lost to super studs, but I mean, how you feeling about this guy?
I feel concerned. Yeah, he's lost 3 of his last 4. So even though this is his first loss at featherweight ever, it is his first loss at featherweight ever.
It's crazy.
It's still concerning because of the way he has lost his last 2 fights. And kudos to whoever mentioned it in the chat. And there may have been more than one person. And I wish I had taken down your name. Like, he could go from king of the pound for pound hill to washed Frankie Edgar faster than just about anybody since, well, maybe Frankie Edgar. I don't know. Like, just the way he went down this time, again, just out cold, is concerning. And yeah, Makhachev probably outweighed him by like 25 pounds in the cage. And yeah, Topuria is probably the hardest hitter at 145 pounds right now, but it's still concerning. And it does leave me concerned for where he goes next. Because he's been honest about 2 things in the lead up to this fight. One, that he knows he doesn't have infinite time left in this sport, regardless of whether he won or lost. And then just his very kind of open and vulnerable comments about how he is not at his best when he doesn't have a fight to be preparing for. Because that sounds like the words of a man who will hang out too long. Like a guy that doesn't have purpose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like when I saw him knocked out, I kind of thought of that, and I think Frank Edgar is a good point. I saw people talking about BJ Penn. I was thinking about Chuck Liddell, like when he was the face of all of MMA. He was the star. He was, right after the tough era, and he got knocked out by Quentin Rampage Jackson, and then it just became one after another after another. I'm not as concerned because his skill level is so much better. But I mean, I don't want to say it's a lottery ticket that he wins a title again, but it's like a full house of bingo. Like you're at the bingo hall in the full house, it's going on.
Just because Topuria is so good. Because my thought is from here, Topuria probably defends this thing for a while. Because otherwise, anybody who's gonna take the belt from Topuria anytime in the next 2 years is somebody that Volkanovski's already beaten badly.
Yeah, and he's going to need 1 or 2 title defenses, and then John Anik will be calling the consensus greatest featherweight champion of all time. By this time next year he will be. That obviously the skill level of Topuria is something I would be really worried about, but also the age of Volkanovski, the mental aspect of the game, which he was questioning himself. I don't want to say question, because when people talk about mental, you really gotta be like a psychologist and spend a lot of time with them. But when it's not like he something he used to be a master of is starting to get to him a little bit. Now add this into it. Add. He made jokes about the whole age thing, but I'm sure like he actually there was one point he admitted the same thing. Like it's like in one of the, I don't know if it was on the weigh-in show or what, but he said something like, "Yeah, I hear people saying, am I too old?" And I ask myself the same question. Just asking him that. And it's going to be even more now. And more people saying it. And more people online. And more, wow, you would have sidestepped this one, or you would have not back straight up, or whatever the questions he's going to have. You made a good point that this is his first loss at featherweight and whatnot. If he goes on one of these runs where he loses 4 in a row and then retire, 4 more fights, something, those runs. How will you remember this guy?
One of the greatest fighters ever to do it, and despite that, a bit of an overachiever. Yes, he was a rare athlete, and that's understated. People who talk about Volkanovski never talk about his athletic gifts, but nonetheless, overcoming a handicap and being one of the shorter fighters for his division in regard to how good he was. I mean, who else racks up like 12 or 13 wins in a row while being smaller than everyone he fights? Like, I mean, we're going to talk about Marab in a minute, but
maybe Demetrius Johnson. Like he was somehow even undersized at flyweight, but
yeah.
The point taken. Yeah. Like,
and Johnson is another guy in the conversation for, is this the guy, the greatest fighter of all time? So yeah.
They talk about Juice X mentioned Frank Yeager. Yeah, he didn't go as long a run, but yeah, that was a guy that obviously is a great answer. Yeah, I mean, to me, he's locked. No matter what he does for the rest of his career, he's locked as a top 10 fighter ever.
Yeah,
and closer to the top 5. If so I was, like I said, I was planning on what I want to say, and my question was, if he won this, say he continues, it looks like the first round, he wins 48-47, really close fight. I was going to be like, all right, Jones, GSP, DJ, and give me Volk, like top 4 fighters ever. So it's just so funny how things change, like we said, about going from a pound for pound guy. That said, if anybody could ever come back, being 35, going against a more skilled guy, going against the younger guy, coming off losses, have that Cinderella Disney type movie, Rocky 3, ending of Rocky 3. If I had to take someone, it'd be Volk.
I agree. Now that I've seen them fight, and I understand that Volkanovski will have to be basically perfect for 5 full rounds to beat Topuria, that is a little daunting, but think of it this way. Say Volkanovski says, I'm not retiring, but I'm not getting an instant title rematch. I need to fight my way back to the title. The best guy he hasn't faced yet in that division is probably Movsar Evloev. And if they fight 4 to 6 months from now, are you shocked if Volkanovski just eats him up?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, as bad as he lost tonight, there's still a very good chance that he's easily now the number 2 guy in the division.
Yeah, there's nobody right now, even though he got knocked out. There's nobody in the division right now that I would take over Alex Volkanovski other
No,
than the current champion.
no, the only other fighter in the top 10 or 15 that has that same kind of fight-ending power is Yair Rodriguez, and Volkanovski absolutely dog walked
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, put in the chat, guys, who would be a betting favorite? Not who would you pick, just who would be a betting favorite of Volkanovski right now, other than Topuria in the division. So let's get into that. Let's match make for a second. You know, I'll let you go first because you kind of threw out Edler's name. Is that what you would do with Volkanovski? Like he says, yeah, I want to fight again. Let's fight at UFC. I don't know, 302, 303, something like that. And you're like, nope, we're gonna do something different with Topuria, or maybe Topuria gets injured. So just take that out. Like, Topuria gets injured, he can't fight until the end of the year or something like that. What are you doing?
If Topuria gets injured, then I'm doing Volkanovski versus Evloev for an interim title, or at
Okay.
least to determine the next guy. But if not, I'm holding Evloev back. I'm
Okay.
I,
So let me ask you this. So I shouldn't have said get injured because that's not fair. But like, would you do the vote like the rematch? Like
no.
he's saying, I want to go in Spain. If anybody's ever deserved a rematch, it's Volkanovski. You don't go on the run that he has without, But
You know me. I'm generally against instant title rematches unless there was some sort of controversy in the first fight. Here there was no controversy. And if they do an instant rematch, it's almost a lose-lose for the UFC. Either Topuria just proves again that he's the present and the future of the division, or Volkanovski wins. Yeah, you've got a trilogy fight, but you've also squandered the rich bank of exciting contenders that you now can,
yeah,
they're stuck at the end of the line again. Like, why? I think the happiest man on earth right now, aside from Topuria, is probably Max Holloway, and it should be.
absolutely. So there is some, there's so many ways we can go with this, but I know you listened to Topuria. He was already answered who he wants to fight after he beats Volkanovski this week, and he was saying, "I'm not fighting any of those guys he's Volkanovski already beat," which is like so. Other than Evloev, who can you fight? Like there's nobody left because of Volkanovski kind of ran through the division. I take that as more promotion than anything. Let me play devil's advocate. Now, I wouldn't give Volkanovski an immediate title shot, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second. Why? There's an argument for it. One is just based on merit. Like if anybody's ever deserved it, that's the vote. If the way I would give him an instant rematch would it if of course it's controversial, but also if it was just like an all-time war, just even a back and forth really close where people are,
Mhm.
if it looked like Duplessis and Strickland where half the people thought Volk won, half the people took Topuria. Yeah, okay. Like I'm not having my dominant champ lose because one guy went one way on decision instead of the other. But I kind of came up with 3 scenarios for Volkanovski. The one scenario is what you said. Go Evloev and obviously going Evloev. I saw a lot of people throwing Evloev into the title shot, but go Evloev because again, it's hard to match Volkanovski moving forward because he already has fought everybody. The other one would be more he talks to his family. He talks to his family. He decides, you know what, I've done so much. I'm 35. I'm gonna coach. He does his podcasting, he does his cooking show, whatever he wants to do. And just that's the end of the career. Or the third, and this is funny, I was just saying based on merit, I'm gonna go the complete opposite. I'm just gonna give him a fun fight. Henry Cejudo said he's retiring, but he's also been calling for Volkanovski fight forever. He wants to move up. Here you go, dude. Volkanovski versus Cejudo co-main event of some pay-per-view.
I like it as a fight, honestly. Like we'll talk about Cejudo in a few minutes, but even if I'd favor Volkanovski heavily, well,
Yeah, that's what
I favored Marab heavily tonight, and Cejudo clocked him a couple times and put him in situations we'd never seen the guy in. Like, make the fight, sure.
Yeah. All right. So that makes it tough. Like you have to Topuria. If we don't give Evloev the shot, and now we're not giving Volkanovski the shot, what are we doing with this guy? And again, we're not listening to the I'm not fighting anybody who's Volkanovski already beat. Like, okay.
Dev is just the latest of several people to mention. If Aljamain Sterling beats Cater, that's just, it's a fight that you make it while you can, because I think Aljo is a great fighter, but I also think that if you don't kind of push him to the front of the line, he'll lose at some point to somebody that doesn't make as cool and marketable a matchup with Topuria. Because Topuria and Sterling jawing back and forth at each other will be that's a headliner right there.
Yeah, like if he fought Arnold Allen and lost, like that's not as good for the division. Yeah, I totally agree. I just do this match because this guy's been waiting for. I shouldn't say waiting for her because he got 3 shots at this guy, but he's kind of ruining the rest of the division for you. I'd go Max Holloway, regardless if if he wins the BMF, that might change things. But if he loses the BMF, actually no, I don't. Actually, if he wins the BMF, I think you can market that. I'm going. Sure. I won the BMF. I'm bringing it down to featherweight. I'm both titles on the line, kind of thing. Or, if he loses, depends how he loses. But Max Holloway's the guy that he transcends losses. I mean, look at it. Like, he's lost to Volk a bunch of times, and people are like super excited. He's fighting for the BMF. You talk about Topuria's boxing. Well, how about people? A lot of people say that Max Holloway is the greatest boxer in MMA history. So I'm giving Max Holloway the title shot.
And it's probably the 2 best boxers. It's arguably the 2 best boxers in the UFC right now, but such a different pair of styles. Like Topuria, who's got very much the Mike Tyson thing, where he is short, compact, accentuates it by keeping everything short and tight and compact. There's crushing power on everything, versus Holloway, who makes use of his length, makes use of the jab, wears people down, gets his stoppages just by overwhelming people, with his pace and volume. It'd be incredible.
Yeah, guys, put in the chat. Just give like a 1-word answer who you would have Topuria fight next.
Chase, welcome back, Chase. The best boxer is, of course, KJ Noons.
He was experienced. KJ Noons was experienced with the boxing.
KJ Noons was a good boxer, and I especially liked welterweight, like spare tire KJ Noons. I liked that version a lot. Oh man. There's nothing worse for you than beating a Diaz brother, because you were just doomed to fight them forever.
Yeah.
Like Jeremy Jackson and KJ Noons, they might as well be like Nick Diaz's first 2 wives, for as long as they were chained to that dude's side, like after beating him.
But when Jeremy Jackson left the Ultimate Fighter show, his chance to get back in the UFC for like some
chick that they met at the gym.
Yeah, like the pool. They had a pool party or something. Yeah. They met the girl,
and then he got like 25 years in prison for like raping his girlfriend. I think he's out now. Like he got out in like 10 or 12 years for good behavior. But yeah, the scary story, that guy.
But like throwing away your career for some girl you met that day. That's poor Gary. That's some Ian Gary level, like being whooped. We'll get to Ian Gary a little bit, but
yes.
Co-main event. Robert Whittaker took on Paulo Costa in one of the best fights of the night, probably the best fight of the night. Back and forth war. Both guys, especially Whittaker, was busted up. Whittaker won a unanimous decision. I'll go right to that. How did you score the fight?
I scored the fight 29-28 Whittaker.
Yeah, I that's how I had it. So I'm assuming you had the second and third for Whittaker.
Yes.
Okay. Really weird scorecard. I think one of the judges went 30-27 for Whittaker, meaning the round where he almost got knocked dead and ended like
2 of them. One of them went 30. No, 2 of them went 30-27 Whittaker, and the other went 29-28.
Oh, okay. There's 2. That's even worse. That's even worse.
Okay, here's the thing. I came really close to giving Whitaker the first round, even though he got hurt real bad at the end of it as well. Like, if I'm one of the 3 judges, especially if I'm sitting in one of the 2 chairs that are across the cage from where that happens, or I'm in such a position that I can't see his
I
eyes,
can't see it.
I might
Not
give
realize.
Whitaker that round. I thought Whitaker was
Well, he was
winning.
winning.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
winning a competitive round pretty handily. He got hurt. Like, from where we can see, yeah, he got hurt bad enough that he might have been saved by the bell in that round.
Oh
But
yeah, he stayed. He was.
yeah,
Yeah, he looked like he was on ice skates. Looked like like me at my daughter's ice skating birthday body. you know. Um, the first thing that stood out to me when they were in the cage was just the size difference. I mean, it looked like a welterweight going against a light heavyweight. I mean, freaking Paul Costa is huge.
he is.
He looks like the Rock's like younger, better looking brother.
He, I can see
Tan
that.
and muscular and good looking and like
I mean, he is more a survivor of hair implants than really a recipient of them. But despite that, yeah, he's a good looking fellow.
So I thought Costa was shot. I really did. I didn't think he was going to be there. I thought Whitaker was going to smash him, and Costa looked good. Like the thing that really shocked me was his cardio. Like, he did slow down a little bit, but you expect that in a 15-minute slugfest. But it was not what I expected. Like, I thought he was going to. I mean, he looked way better against Whitaker than he did in a win against Luke Rockhold.
I think that's as good as Paulo Costa has looked in his entire career, considering how he looked and against the competition. Like, the win over Romero was his best win. It's what really kind of propelled him into the title picture. But Whitaker is a better fighter than Romero, and Costa looked really, really good. Like, he was.
Yeah.
What I couldn't believe is, over a year removed from the fight against Rockhold, which was more fun than it was good, and then before that, his just ridiculous weight goofery and loss in a bad fight to Vittori. In the wake of that, I did not expect him to be that fast and to actually step on the gas and throw enough volume. Like, he was shockingly fast. I am not throwing out any accusations here, but I wouldn't be shocked if we come back with some bad news from this fight. Like, he looked so good physically that the only thing I could think of to keep comparing it to was the last year of TRT Vitor in like 2013 or 2014, whenever they did that, where I'm like, how is this dude in his mid 30s or, like, all of a sudden faster, stronger, leaner than he's ever been before, like icing top 5 fighters with head kicks? Like, I hope that is not what we get, because
me too.
I coming into tonight, I could not have given a shit less about Costa's future in the middleweight division. I thought, well, he's always funny and he'll have some fun fights and be a good test for up and comers. But now I'm like, how many guys in the top 10 would this version of Costa have given real problems still? Like,
when I was watching him, I thought the same thing. Like, yeah, Rob Whitaker, I mean, he's so skilled, and we'll get to Rob Whitaker for a second. But things that just stood out to me about Costa was, obviously we know he has power, but cardio looked good. His chin is granite. I mean, Whitaker blasted him with some shots. And again, Whitaker's never been known for his power, but did not even reacting, not even taking step backs. It's coming right back in. Kicking game, like spinning wheel kick, but also like he was tossing up high kicks. He had some thudding leg kicks. He always had those leg kicks, but those high kicks were like, where did those come from? Still some issues. He struggled with the speed of Whitaker. He really struggled with and we'll get into again. I said we'll get into Whitaker's what I thought he did extremely well, but he, the leg kicks was the issue. He's heavy. He's got that heavy boxing style. He's heavy on his front foot. Doesn't check leg kicks, but I thought the same thing. Like you said, how many guys would beat him? I also said, like, is there anybody in the division you'd feel comfortable picking him, over Costa? Like, Costa to me showed, he's still going to struggle with guys in the division. He's still going to lose to top guys, but he also has the rare ability that he could beat any of the top guys on his best night.
Yeah. Like his chin is granite. You mentioned that, but he hit Whitaker with so many head kicks, just fast, untelegraphed, and even the ones that clattered off of Whitaker's guard, they're like banging his own forearm off his head. He would have been trouble for a lot of people tonight. I do have to give a little mention. Like, Dev and some other people have talked about it. It is pretty hilarious that now that Costa's gotten his hair fixed in the front, he's getting a bald spot on the back. Like, okay, if all of you know that very famous UFC picture of Vettori standing all posed and he's wearing his shorts backwards, I assume it's the same thing with Costa's hair, where like the people at the hair plug place told him, dude, okay, you look fine here, but now you're going bald in the back. And just like Vettori with the shorts, he just got mad and refused to believe them.
That's it. I think that's just God's way of saying, like, you can't be perfect.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Ernie like can steal like every woman in the world from anybody, but all right. Well, we're not gonna
horse meat, Paulo Overeem.
Whitaker, I mean, freaking insane toughness. Like, I'm thinking about a guy who's, recently knocked out by Izzy Adesanya, just knocked out from Dricus du Plessis, hurt bad in the very beginning of the fight against Paul Costa, who's, you mentioned Volkanovski in the size, Whitaker's the same way. His toughness is insane, absolute insanity. But things he was doing well, I thought he looked great, even though he was busted up. He was disguising his attacks so well and really kind of tricking what he was. I don't know if I'm just saying this correctly, but showing one thing, like kind of like being a magician, like showing one thing, but it really like get you to look over here and hitting him with stuff like this. Like he would, I remember one time it was like second round, he threw a jab, and as he was coming out, he just like slowed it down and then just wrapped a hook with the same hand and the same punch around Costa's defense. He kept going where he would look like he was coming downstairs to either go for a takedown or like a body punch, and then bring that up right to a jab to the face as Costa like started coming down. His kicks, he was disguised that he would step in hard with the left foot, like he was going to jab now, and then just whip the kick over. Really good. And then he was changing up his rhythm of his attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fantastic.
Fantastic. And took advantage of the fact that as well prepared as Costa was for this fight, physically and in terms of his attitude and his approach, he's never been great at in-fight adjustments because, he disguised everything. And you will talk on the previews about how incredible Whitaker's jab is, and how it's this dipping jab that he'll then follow up with, a head kick on the other side. But no, he was using it to build, like this time was building a 1-2 off of, which he doesn't often do. Like often he'll just double up that jab or come with the kick, or a 1-2 or even a 1-3, like you mentioned, where he like fires out the jab and then comes back with a hook. But no, where I was impressed with Costa's chin was where he was basically running into a short, like, right cross from Whitaker over and over again. And you couldn't really see how much of a collision it was because they were both kind of leaning in on it. But he was catching Costa with that over and over again, especially in the last 2 rounds. And Costa came out of it looking like he hadn't been in a fight, and Whitaker looked like he'd been run over by a car. Like, brilliant stuff.
Yeah, he was really trying to he said that he wanted to stop Costa, and that's not really something that Whitaker really talks like that. And it seemed like he really was trying. Like he was throwing that overhand right a lot and landing. I mean, he springs into shots so fast. It's really impressive. The middleweight division is an absolute mess right now with the recent changing. I think in the last 18 months we've had 4 different champions. Between Izzy, Pajeda, back to Izzy, then to Strickland, then to Dricus du Plessis. Then they're trying to make Izzy fight, but Izzy, he doesn't want to fight, or he's saying he's going to take time off, and then du Plessis banged up, and like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. I'm going to give you 4 names. Give me the order. You're a UFC matchmaker. You're trying to match du Plessis. Like, hey, I want to fight in August. I want to defend the belt. I'm going to give you 4 names. You say, I'm calling, and you're like, first one accept takes it. I'm calling this guy first. That, go back to the old Playboy days where you call one girl, it's late at night, you call this girl, she don't answer, you call the next one, Izzy Adesanya, Rob Whitaker, Sean Strickland, Hazmat Shmaev. Those are your 4 names. Give me a list. I'm calling this guy, then this guy, then this guy, then this guy.
Adesanya.
He's your first pick. Okay.
For like, wait, are we saying assuming that Duplessis is still the champ, or
Yeah,
like
Like they're saying like three,
dude,
4 months
if
now. Duplessis depending on the title.
if the UFC does not make Adesanya versus Duplessis, what like before either guy loses multiple fights and it loses all its shine, it'll be one of the biggest fumbles in the last
Absolutely.
decade.
Guys, throw it in the chat too. Like do the same thing. Put it in order, and we can read some of them.
Dude, Jeff Jackson Trucking LLC is getting some free advertising for me because I'm going to say the full name of his company every time I quote him. But I'm actually good with this one right here. Adesanya, Shemaev, Strickland, Whitaker. Just Adesanya again. That's gold right there. Promotionally, and it's a fascinating fight. Shemaev, just I don't think he deserves it, but you got to make it before he gets bored and just retires or gets fat or does something stupid. Strickland, we've already seen it. Whitaker, we've already seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. You said that you said not doing the Adesanya fight would be like the biggest mishap of the UFC or biggest spill. Not as big as a spill of drink I just did as I reached over to get my notes. As I spilled a drink that's what I'm
That's why I use a grown man sippy cup that has like a nice top that stays on. Yeah.
That's why you're the best of the business. So I was cleaning up a mess trying to listen to you. So you had Izzy, Shemaev,
yep,
Whitaker, Strickland, or Strickland, Whitaker.
Strickland, Whitaker.
Okay, so I have it very similar. The only difference I would do Whitaker, Strickland, just because I just saw the Strickland fight.
Okay.
Yeah, there was more beef between those two guys. Like I'm much more interested in the first Strickland fight with. Like I was disappointed with like them being nice to each other the week of the fight and everything. I wanted more like, Strickland, I'm gonna stab you, and I like if they had that still going on, okay. But like, I thought I won the decision. Like, kind of boring. So the division is so good. I don't like my notes are all over the place. I can't read my notes. Like when I say I spell bad. Let's matchmake for a second. Yep. So obviously I just threw those names out, kind of setting up what we want to do with Whitaker, and I would do Whitaker versus Shemaev. With assuming Izzy takes on DDP.
100% on board with that. It's the kind of fight that will answer some questions about Shemaev, and it's one that I don't care who the champ is. If Whitaker beats Shemaev, he's earned a shot.
Even if Izzy won the title, you give him a third shot.
Even if it's Izzy.
See, because then that to me, I slide Strickland back in. If Izzy wins, rematch against Strickland,
which I'd be okay with as well. But yeah, I mean, Izzy and Whitaker have fought 2 times, but Whitaker was much more competitive the second time, and Adesanya's got a knockout loss and been soundly outstruck by a guy that I like.
Sure.
Adesanya's come down in the world a little bit, and Whitaker, if he were to beat Shemaev, has come up in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. But the one thing is, if Adesanya wins the title again, then his stock is obviously way back up again. Maybe not the level that we had it on, but obviously the easy answer is Shemaev wins. Like Shemaev beats Whitaker, then that's the guy you just now he's got the name, but he also has the merit. But again, I agree what you said earlier. You kind of have to strike now with Shemaev because he gets bored. He has visa issues. He has, I don't know, like I can see him getting a gang fight. Like who knows that guy?
Yeah.
So, Costa to me, he's much harder. I want to have some wacky fight. If he decides to go up to like light heavyweight, I could put him against like Johnny Walker or something like that. But if he stays at middleweight, I mean, they already had him. Wasn't he matched against Alice Garoff, Ikram Skill if they were supposed to fight?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would. Yeah. I'd have. I mean, it's not the guy. I think is Alice Garoff's undefeated, right? Or does he have one loss?
He's undefeated in the UFC.
Okay.
Like
I think so. He might have one loss, but
the main problem for me with Paulo Costa is he's fighting once a year. He's fought once in like 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. I don't want to give Even if I'm the UFC, I don't want to give a title shot to a guy that's not proven he can get into the cage on any sort of regular basis.
Oh yeah, Anthem Tardif mentioned that he lost this to Hazmat on the
Yeah,
regional.
yeah.
If you watch that one, he was doing very well until he was starched. So yeah, good call.
Mhm,
He was. That's one thing I was like to my notes, like, oh, he was doing well against Shmaev.
mhm.
um, yeah, no, there's always gonna be an issue with Costa. Like all of a sudden you have a middleweight fight and the guy's showing up like, well, I thought we were doing heavyweight, or you know. All right, let's move on because we still have like 10 more fights to do and all the fun stuff. Ian Machado Gary took on Jeff Neal, winning by split decision. Um, I went to MMA decisions. Like I saw a lot of people score that fight for Jeff Neal. I mean, it was close. The rounds were close, but I thought I scored all 3 rounds for Gary. Um, I said at worst he won 2 of them.
I gave. I thought the first 2 rounds were both very close. I gave round 1 to Neil, gave round 2 to Gary, but again, it was competitive. By round 3, I thought Gary was pretty clearly in the driver's seat. Like
Yeah,
I, I have a tough time justifying scoring that one for Neil.
yeah. I thought Neal fought well. I thought he as well as he could. I think he had some things going against him that he was going to have such a hard time adjusting with. One, the size difference. Gary's a big dude. Like I met him when he was in Boston his last fight. He's big. He's long arms. That obviously is always going to be an issue. I mean, it was kind of the same issue Jeff Neal had with Shavkat because Shavkat is so freaking big. But worse is, he just got beat up by Shavkat, but Shavkat is more technical, more powerful. Jeff Neal's never had someone clearly faster than him. And he's the fast guy. He's the one with the quick hands. And this time, and there might be someone I'm forgetting about, but a recent memory, this is the one where Gary was so much faster than him.
Gary was faster, and Gary did a brilliant job of managing the distance because there's a very specific range where Neil was going to be able to be effective.
Sure.
And Gary did a great job of, well, first line of defense was to keep him on the outside of that. He did his like little stabbing oblique kick to the front leg, the John Jones thing, would throw out his jab. But then when Neil would get into range, and Neil did score with some clean punches on him, but Gary kept meeting him with the intercepting knee. It never did enough damage that Neil was like going to go down from a body shot, but it clearly disrupted his rhythm because he never got off that second punch. Like every time he came in, he'd either run into the knee or he'd land one clean punch, and then there would be a clinch that seemed to be half initiated by Neil, but he was never really able to settle into that middle to outside of boxing range, inside of kicking range, where Neil really, really bothers people and has gotten his nastiest finishes. So yeah, a little of Neil's fault, a lot to Gary's credit, but yeah, this was a fight of distance, and Gary won the distance battle pretty much throughout.
Yeah, I thought Gary. I mean, obviously he had the long range. I thought the way he moved kind of played a cat and mouse game, and then as Neil still trying to make up ground, that's when he's directly in front of Machado. Gary starts throwing his shots and landing. I thought it was a very good strategy. I think it was also like I saw some people like saying, "Oh, if you turn it up, you got to finish," and people were dogging him for that. And I'm like, Jeff Neal's best chance is if you're going to sit on a punch trying to land a big shot and he beats you to it, and he's got big power, he knocks you out with a big left hand or a high kick or something. Sometimes you just got to take what your opponent gives you.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's what happened. So Ian Gary is such an interesting character. Regardless of how you feel about him, it seemed like so many people hate this guy. It's good, like they say like bad press is better than no press. That's how you feel with Michelle Gary. Like if I'm the UFC, like, hey, I don't need you to be a fan favorite. Like I'll take like being hated. Like every good movie needs a bad villain. You got Darth Vader, Harry Potter, or you fill in the blank of all these top movies. Joker. But you can use Ian Gary as the bad guy.
Absolutely. There's I mean, John Jones made his way to being one of the bigger draws in the sport, with the majority of people tuning in to see him lose.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the hardcores. I don't know if casuals really root against John Jones as much, but a lot of hardcores absolutely do. That said, I can understand the John Jones hate. He's obviously there's always going to be people who hate the guy at the top. We're gonna get into the legal stuff in 1 second because that's the real reasons why you hate John Jones and picograms and the fighting and the fighting with cops and smashing into women with his car, and I mean the list goes on and on and on with John Jones. But also when you're on the top, there's always going to be some people who want to see you fail. It's like the amount of comments during the Super Bowl I'd seen people like the amount of people like, I don't hate the Chiefs, like I don't hate Patrick Mahomes, but like I don't want to see him winning. I don't want to keep seeing him win. The people who were like, the amount of people said, "Oh my god, I can't stand Taylor Swift." I'm like, really? What did she really do that's bad? Like she's goes to her boyfriend's football game and whatever, little girls like her. Okay, I've never heard anything bad about her. I'm not a follow Taylor Swift that well, but that said, so I get that like you're on the top, you're undefeated, you're a little brash. Like I understand that hate to an extent, but to the level of hate E. Machado gets, I don't get it, man. Like I don't get why everyone hates this guy. Like what did this dude do? And I know I did this on the previous show. I'm doing it again. Everybody hates this guy.
It's no, I agree that it's strange. It in some ways it's unprecedented because on the one hand, he has the same sort of brash up and comer cockiness that McGregor or a Pimblett had. And
But
you know what?
Topuria
If you
has Topuria,
the Topuria has, and if you think that Gary's he's only undefeated because he hasn't run into the right guy yet, and he's going to lose terribly in his next fight, I'm a-okay with that. There's part of me that thinks that as well. There's part of me that looks around between him and the Shavkat Rakhmanovs and Jack Della Maddalenas of the world, and is like, Gary's going to lose pretty soon. He's going to lose before he makes it to a title shot.
Sure.
But that doesn't make me personally venomous against him. It doesn't make me go onto social media and like go after him. And the only thing I can think of is that, unlike say a Connor, a Topuria, a Pimblett, he's a guy that on top of all that cockiness, he has a very public, vulnerable side where he is married to a much older woman who is and was very much her own person and on some level a celebrity before they ever got together, and that makes him like less of a man in some people's eyes. I do not get it. Like,
so I'm gonna call out every single guy in here, every single guy in this chat. Not married guys, that's different. Not calling you out, not calling me out, but every single guy. People are talking shit about him being with this woman. There's not a single guy in here would turn that girl away. Not a single guy. If you were in the same boat, you'd be whipped just as bad as he is because she is hot as hell. Am I lying?
And no, and on top of all that, on top of being an attractive woman, to be an actual like woman of substance who had her own life, and that she doesn't want you for your money because you guys have been together since before you were a big deal. Like, she messaged me on Twitter ahead of
hey man,
Gary's,
there you go.
Yeah, hey Ian, Gary, your wife was in me DMs. She messaged me on Twitter ahead of maybe a second or third UFC fight, just pointing out that one of our articles, not even one that I'd written, I don't think, had his record wrong by one fight.
Of course.
But she's that level of vigilant over her man's like professional standing and well-being. Like, every one of you should have a woman who has your back to that level. Yeah. And by the way, she was like extremely pleasant to deal with, and not a bad thing to say about her.
Oh, look at Jeff Jack. Oh, she's Rhode Island hot. What channel? Where are you from? Unless you like in like Hollywood, freaking shut up.
Portia Baines killing me. I'm straight, and I think she's hot.
I mean, I don't know how successful the trucking business does. So maybe it's like up to like Zuckerberg level. So maybe he is turning girls like that away. So I just like I see people say, "Oh, he can't take the vulnerability," the people talk. Yeah, I would have a huge problem if someone was like calling my wife a slut. Like I'd have a huge problem too. Or all the shit they were saying about him. Oh,
Yeah.
saying that his kid's not even his and stuff. Like I don't get it, dude. I mean I don't get it. Maybe I'm a boomer or some shit, and I'm too old to get like the cuck business and all that nonsense. But I like the guy. I think he's great for the sport, and I think he's extremely skilled. And that said, sometimes I'm disappointed when a MMA fighter picks the perfect matchup for the next fight because like you kind of want to take credit for it, and you're like, damn it, dude, like this is so super obvious. But Kobe covered. I mean, that's got to be. I mean, no, again, he's going to have to handle Kobe. I mean, Kobe's going to be worse than Strickland with the calling your wife a slut and all this stuff. But there's a way to spin that. Like, there's a way to spin. And Kobe has his legion. I mean, Kobe's hated by some people, and he's absolutely adored by some people. I think there's a way to spin it. Like, you're fighting for your woman's honor.
Yeah.
That'll sell the shit. Like, I would sell the shit out of that.
Not that they would need either guy to step over the line to make publicity for that fight, but you can trust that both of them probably are going to, because as people are pointing out in the chat, if you're going to hate Gary for anything, hate him for being a guy that has dealt what he appears unable to take. Like he's the guy posting like photos of Neil's, like, police booking, going after other people's families. Like if you want to go after him for that, like that's understandable. But
yeah, but I don't. was that so bad? Him showing it, I thought it was kind of funny, like the booking of Gary. I mean, sorry, of Jeff Neal.
I mean, I like Jeff. I thought it was funny. I wouldn't have posted it because I don't want to get punched in the face by Jeff, but he wasn't scared of that, so I guess more power to him.
yeah. He said it was a fight. I'm like, I'd be scared of Jeff Neal, but yeah. I mean, it's just weird where one guy, his wife is called a slut. He's the bad guy. The guy driving around drunk with a illegal gun in his car.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. I mean, I don't know. This is. I guess again, I'm probably a square. All right, so
no, dude, can we say that I don't root for any particular fighter, and again, unless it's someone I know personally, and I will tell you that, but if Gary makes it to a fight against Sean Strickland at one point, can you imagine the campaign to that where each guy is just going completely below the belt, but then acting surprised and offended that the other guy's doing it to him? It's like that meme of like the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other.
That's true. Good point. Yeah. The one good thing about Strickland though is like he can't handle it, but he admits his hypocrisy. I'll give him that.
Yeah,
like he will say, like, yeah, I crossed the line, and I admit that I can't handle when people cross the line to me. Like, at least that's like cool. All right, so this is what gets really bad. My notes on Cejudo and Rob are absolutely freaking wasted. So bear with me. Former two-weight champion Henry Cejudo took on Merab Dvalishvili. Merab won by unanimous decision. I've tweeted this, and I think you shared it, and I think Merab is the best 135-pound fighter in the world, and I don't even see an argument for anybody else. Make an argument for anybody else.
There's nobody else that has proven it. I think there's a chance based on the eyeball test that Patrick Mix is the best 135-pounder in the world. But gun to my head, based on what they've actually shown in the cage, it's Merab. And I agree that there's not really a close second.
Yeah. Yeah. No, just for fun and entertainment sense, I'll make an argument for somebody. Like, okay, Patrick Mix. I say, oh, what? Merab's the best because he beat 37-year-old Henry Cejudo. He beat a 37-year-old flyweight coming off a loss. Who he hasn't got a win in like 3 years. Like, that makes you the best. And he lost around, almost got knocked out. I stop guys in seconds. That's it. That's the argument I make for Patrick Mix.
Mm-hmm.
Sean O'Malley, kind of the same thing. Like I knocked out your big brother that you couldn't beat. You wouldn't challenge for the title. I knocked him out. I know that. Yeah. Sanhagen, kind of the same thing. That said, dude, I don't know what I'm more impressed with Merab. His paces. And it's funny because his pace was so good, and it still wasn't Merab's level pace.
Completely agree. I mean, tonight in that fight, we saw, and Merab clearly won, but we saw each guy in situations they had not really been in, win or lose up until now. Like, just like Cejudo had a good approach to the early part of the fight against Merab. I thought just kicking at the front leg, he
Sure.
landed like clean shots on him. It was the first time we'd really seen Merab take a step back in the first round of any fight. Cejudo took him down, like, and then as Merab started to turn this into a Merab fight, we had not seen Cejudo overwhelmed by pace before. And it's not like Cejudo was exhausted. He just slowed down like a normal elite athlete would, and it wasn't enough to keep up. Like, Merab just has that that little nitro boost button, like from a car racing video game, and just everybody's in the dust, including
Merab is like, I think about like sprinters or track stars, and you have like, the guy who runs 100-meter dash, you run as fast as you can, and then you have what's like the 1 mile race. Like, you run fast. The guy who wins is running fast, but it's like a very fast jog. And then maybe the last 50 meters, you really just all out sprint because I get to that line, I'm all done. No, Merab sprinted right for everyone. He's running a 100-yard dash in the mile race. Like he doesn't know, Cejudo's trying to jog there, and Rob's just blitzing. I think why Cejudo had success early and I know Dev said this text to me, and kind of something I was talking about too. I think he got a little starstruck at first, like fighting the 2-weight champion. He talked about if it was a match, wrestling match, he'd lose to Cejudo. I think there was a little bit of that, and then he got over it. He got a takedown. He got things, and then he just started failing himself and started mauling. And then his skill is fun, but his personality might be even funner. Like the talking to Zuckerberg while he's fighting, like in the middle of a match, jumping out of the cage with Zuckerberg, the coat thing with O'Malley, like the pull out the Mexican flag, like getting Mexico on his side. Like he's funny.
He really is a lot of fun, and he's one of those guys that he's fun without really it having to be at the expense of his opponent. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing because I'm a shrinking violet that doesn't like fighters to talk shit on each other, just because that makes him fun regardless of who the opponent is. Like there doesn't have to be something he can go after. He's just having fun. It makes up for the fact that his fights are not always the most exciting. I mean, you're probably going to decision, but having said that, this fight, I assumed that it being a longer fight would actually favor Cejudo, because I'm like, Merab's not going to finish him. So since Cejudo is the harder hitter, he's the more dynamic finisher for what it's worth, the longer fight favors the more dynamic finisher. That just means Merab has to be that much more careful for that much longer. But I don't feel that way after watching this fight. Like Merab was pulling ahead in a way that would have left me alarmed for Cejudo if this thing had 2 more rounds to go. So
yeah, he might get a stoppage. You got fourth to fifth. He might get a stoppage. The one thing I kept thinking of is Aljamain Sterling, one of the greatest bantamweight champions of all time. Some people argue the greatest, but whatever. We're not going down that path. He had an incredible run in the UFC, and I just kept thinking, was he even the best 135-pounder on his team?
And considering that both guys are pretty quiet about that, I have the feeling that I know who gets the best of it behind closed doors.
And Sterling is a really interesting stylistic matchup because of his length, and he's such an he's a great wrestler and underrated wrestler, and he's not a flashy one. He's more of a kind of very similar to how Ben Askren wrestled. And I'm talking about NCAA wrestling.
You stole it. I was going to say, what if Ben Askren was actually a plus athlete?
Yeah,
maybe he'd be throwing some fearless kicks and stuff. But yeah,
he's not Jordan Burroughs blasting double and through your hips. He's more of a slick, grabbing your ankle, sliding this way, like hip control. I, it would have been really fun to watch these guys in practice. Like I'm sure the guys who got to watch it, your ally Quintas and stuff, much know the secrets and how freaking great it probably was to watch these guys go at it.
Like, I won't riot, but if I don't get to see Aljamain Sterling versus Movsar Evloev at some point before Aljo retires, I will be a little sad.
That'll be fun.
It'd be the funkiest UFC fight probably ever. So scrambly.
Oh yeah, it would be fun. So I mean, I'm assuming like there is obviously Marlon Chitavero's fighting for the title. You still have Corey Sandhagen on the side with an injury, despite destroying Marlon Chitavero recently. I'm assuming you give him Merab the title shot next.
I would have given Merab the title shot 3 fights ago. And even if you can't stand Merab, you think his shtick is annoying, you think his fights are boring, that's all the more reason then just get him in and out of there. Because you know what? You can do the John Fitch, Yushin Okami thing to him where, okay, he's had his title shot. Now we're going to cut him as soon as he loses one more fight, and you'll never see him on the main card again. Like, even if the UFC hates Merab, they got to give him the shot so he doesn't just hover around there and make him look sillier and sillier. Like, give this guy his shot so you can bury him. As it is, I think whoever comes out of that, I favor Merab against. So we may be in for an era. It might not be that long since he's already like 33 or 34, but the man's time is coming.
I mean, he'll be the consensus greatest bantamweight by April. But I mean, you get if you don't like, you said you don't like Merab's personality, you don't like stop. How can you not like that guy? Like, something doesn't matter with you if you don't like Merab. So let me ask you this: he's got to fight for the title next. I'm not making predictions. He's got to do more tape study, this and that. Obviously, if one of these guys destroy the other one next month, they could change how you view this fight with Merab. But I'm assuming Merab would be the betting favorite. Who's a tougher stylistic matchup for Merab? Is it O'Malley or is it Marlon Vera?
I think it's actually O'Malley. Because O'Malley has a greater possibility of changing the whole complexion of the fight in 1 or 2 strikes. Like, if considering that Cejudo, who's not really known for it, gave Merab some problems in the first 2 minutes of the fight just by kicking at his front leg, O'Malley could give him serious problems. And O'Malley has
Vera's got good kicks.
What's that?
Marlon Vera has good kicks, though.
No, I agree that Vera has good kicks, but and you're right that like I'm probably underrating Vera's chance to do the same thing, but I also think Vera would be less diligent on the game plan than O'Malley, because O'Malley will walk into that knowing exactly what he needs to do to win. As cocky as he is, he may say wild stuff during the lead up, but he knows that the floor is lava if he's fighting Merab. Yeah. Whereas Vera's just going to bite down on the mouth guard the first time Merab catches him clean. He's going to start swinging, and Merab's going to dump him with an easy double leg.
Yeah, and exactly what. Yeah, I totally agree. So Merab, the way you got to beat him is you got to catch him, like one shot him coming in. Who's more likely to do that? They both have power, but the guy more likely to one shot him is the guy we just saw win by one shot. Sean O'Malley.
Jade Monkey, our host of the MMA Mic Drop podcast, longtime friend of the show. He's our word on the ground. He was at the events all weekend, and he says Merab is winning them over, at least in person. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. Sean Sheehan, Sherdog's on Sean Sheehan tweeted this out during the fight right after Merab won. He said, watching that, he just kept thinking, like, I wish Marlon Vera wasn't the one fighting Sean O'Malley, and it was Merab next month. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Yeah, I definitely think if you're going to put Marlon Vera in, you do it now when it's O'Malley, because there's a backstory there. If Merab beats O'Malley, there's no backstory with Merab and Vera. No. But again, the build up and everything with Merab and O'Malley would have been fantastic. Let's go over to Cejudo for a second. So Cejudo said if he didn't win, he was going to retire. I think that's going to be true. I don't think we see Cejudo again. That said, I'll say this. I still think he's really good. Like if Marab's the best bantamweight in the world, maybe Aljo's number 2. Like Cejudo could be 3 or 4 or
I
5 or 6.
Thank you. I don't believe that Henry Cejudo right now is the third best bantamweight in the world, but it's not a ridiculous argument. And
No.
wherever you believe he is, if you think he's only the 10th right now, he has been right there competitive with 2 of the 3 best in his
Yeah.
last couple of fights. It is a rare 135 pounder that looks as good as Cejudo did at age 37 as he did. So while I don't think taking 3 years off or 2.5 years off was a smart move, it has left him with more tread left on the tires than most guys have by this age. So
Yeah, no, he lost, like you said, he lost a split decision to Aljamain Sterling when Aljamain Sterling was champ, and then he lost to Merab, who we both said we think is the best 135 pounder, but still took a round from him. I know all 3 judges, I think they said gave it to Cejudo or
it's unanimous. Yeah, it was 29-28 all the way
yeah.
across.
So yeah, and 37. I know some people say, I see Chris Wiz saying he wasted some of his prime years and this.
Yep.
Yeah, I get that, but he has accomplished something. I mean, 2-weight champion, the Olympic gold medal, and all this. That's a hell of a prime still. Like, yeah, maybe he gets 1 or 2 more title defenses. He probably would have picked up a loss to Sterling or somebody else during that run.
He still accomplished a hell of a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's move on. We have. Well, my notes are. I'm trying to turn the page. Before that, Anthony Hernandez took on Roman Kovalev, winning by second round submission. Shame on me for going against Hernandez. That's our boy.
Also guilty.
This dude is so legit. I love the run that Anthony Hernandez is on right now.
I do too. And as I said on the preview, even picking Kopolov, that I'd be happy to be wrong here. Both these guys are kind of our guys.
Yeah.
As people that have kind of come out of nowhere. And dude, they both carried 4-fight win streaks into this fight. Like there was a lot at stake here. I'm not going to say it was quite a Sonic the Hedgehog moment where, Kopolov went shing and all of his momentum, flew out and Hernandez scooped it all up. But this fight meant a lot. This was about, like super pivotal fight and one that we'll probably look back on in a year or two as an important one. And Hernandez won it by doing Hernandez things. Before we get into the fight, I've got to say, I started the petition on Twitter tonight. And even though he didn't win, I still say that we need to nickname Kopolov Frocop.
Okay. Frocop. There you go. That's pretty good, man. I give you that.
Thank you.
Might be a little bit of a dad joke, but that's pretty good.
That's what I got.
I'm sure everybody in the chat is laughing. With you or at you, I'm not sure, but I thought it was pretty good. Anthony Hernandez, his run. Well, actually, let me talk about his skill set. His chin is great. Even when he was getting tagged, he wouldn't even take a step back. He just thought walking through is something incredible. His pressure is incredible. Underrated grappler, underrated wrestling. No, I know a lot of people have been talking about, that's the way for him to win. But I mean, just doesn't get credit for how good he is at that stuff. And good.
No, well, I agree. Although I think people are going to start to come around on the grappling part of it. He's always going to have that Viator win in his back pocket. And especially anytime Rogan's on the mic, that's going to be the biggest deal in the world. And now he's like won 3 of his last 5 by submission, 4 of his last 5, at least on the ground. That's going to become part of the story. But his effective wrestling, in spite of not having some kind of, cannonball double leg, is still going to be unsung.
Yeah. I mean, and his pressure is, I mean, he's nonstop on the gas. He's like the poor man's version. Like if Merab is running a sprint, so is Hernandez. He's just finishing second.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's still fast as hell. He's just a little behind, His rise through the rankings where he just keeps getting better and better and looking better and better and beating guys on paper who aren't, guys he should be beating, guys way more talented than him on paper. It reminds me of a Bilal Muhammad run where Bilal just kept beating guys you didn't expect him to beat until finally, like, oh shit, this guy should fight for the title.
I have nothing to counter that with, except that it's a whole lot more fun to watch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll say this: we've talked about this before, and a lot of times this is always the answer. His road to the title, him getting up there, he's probably going to face like a top 10 guy moving forward. And, you just won on a pay per view opener, top 10, then top 5, and top 3, and then champion. His run to get to the title is going to be harder than if he actually fought the champion right now. Like I give him a better chance of beating Duplessis than getting through, like, insert 3 names in the top 10. So I'm just saying it's not out of the. I'm not picking him to be a champion one day. It's not out of the realm of possibility anymore.
Yeah, if we were doing some sort of handicapping, and there probably are futures out there somewhere,
Sure.
he's like 12th down the list, and he's at like plus 3,500 or something. But it's not completely ridiculous anymore.
Yeah.
Like think of how much tighter the line would be if people said, okay, Brendan Allen is a champ at some point, and keep in mind that Fluffy beat Allen, and he's improved more since then than Allen has.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. Good call. Good call. John Anik, as soon as he won, said, "Get this guy a main event." I totally agree. His next fight should be a main event of a fight night. Give me him versus Jack Hermanson, who we just saw fight.
Beautiful. I like that, because if Hernandez can do that to Jack Hermanson, he's on a whole other level, because that is low key what Jack Hermanson does to people.
Yeah.
Outlast, get into the ground, and maul them there. Like, I love it.
Before that, another fight that was a really, really fun fight. Mackenzie Dern took on Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos winning by unanimous decision. Really close fight. How did you score it, Ben?
I scored it 29-27 for Lemos. I gave her a 10-8 second round. I gave Dern the third.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the scorecards I saw a lot. So I looked at MMA decisions. We had 19 people picking Lemos. 3 went with a draw. Ben, I was one of the ones who went with a draw.
Okay, you and Sherdog news editor Tristan Critchfield, he also scored it a draw. I don't hate it. I mean, that basically means you gave Dern the first and third, right?
Yeah, like the first was really close. Like I got no issue with anybody who gave it to Lemos. Lemos was landing the better shots. She just it was. I mean, she wasn't landing hard. She was landing more shots, but then she spent half the round on her back. And I know it's damage, and I know it's this and that, but if you have Mackenzie Dern on top of you, working, trying to find a submission, to me, you're losing that round. You're the one in much bigger danger of getting the fight stopped. So that's why I went with Dern there. I did go the 10-8 round. But I got no problem. Lemos, I felt like a lot of the narrative, even though Dern lost, was like, oh, how tough she is and how she's improving and all this. And I kind of felt that Lemos fought the worst possible way she could against Dern. Like, she gave Dern the opportunity to beat her, and Dern still couldn't win. Like, I kind of feel a lot different than how other people are talking about Dern's performance.
I agree. I mean, Dern had a good, gutty third round, because when Lemos put Dern down with that left hand, that it clearly busted her orbital, because as soon as she went down, like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not the cage side doctor, but if you've seen enough fights, when a fighter goes down and they're not rocked, but they are obviously in pain, it's like she broke her orbital. It
like
goes all the way back to
Randy Couture, when he had his, he normally put the hand right up there, and
the natural reaction. She went like that, and in that 5 seconds, Dern wanted out of that fight. If Lemos just stood and pointed at her, that fight might have been over. But Lemos went in, tried to finish the fight. Dern, to her credit, survived that round and won the third round. So all credit to her. She joins my holy trinity with, like, Alan Jouban and Michelle Watterson as extremely good-looking fighters who fight like they don't give a shit about their face. Like, what could be more heroic? You're willing to give everything you've got, even your looks, to the sport. But you know what? This fight was only even in the air in the third round because Lemos really badly overswung on a punch in the first and made Dern look like Josh Koscheck for about 3 seconds. That is the best takedown Dern has ever gotten. Just a clean double leg, took her all the way off her feet, dropped her down, and sliced right through. I thought she was going to slice right through the mount. I was like, who replaced Mackenzie Dern with Cain Velasquez when I wasn't looking? But it was because Lemos made a huge mistake and Dern just happened to have the presence of mind, the right timing to take advantage. Aside from that one miscue by Lemos, she's probably, I mean, I gave her the first round anyway, but like the only way we're even talking about a draw is if you think Dern did enough after the takedown to steal that round. So yeah, I don't think Dern looked great. She looked tough, but she's always been tough.
Yeah.
And Dev was kind of going in the Sherdog chat about how good is Dern's ground game really?
Wow. I don't want to go too much of a tangent, but it goes down to me when I've always say, and Sean Sheehan is also holding this mantle. BJJ is so overrated in MMA, and I think comes out if you give her a gi and let her do some, grabbing the collar and collar ties and it's just different. It's just a different world. I thought Lemos had really poor fight IQ when, like, in the second when she hurt her and she went down. I understand she followed up with ground and pound and trying to finish it. There comes a moment where you realize, like, okay, I'm not going to finish this person here. She should have let her back up.
Yep.
And then in like the third, she was like coming back into her guard and trying to grapple with her. And I'm like, what are you doing?
And it's hard to do because, when you're in that fight, if you've got the person hurt, every instinct you have is to keep punching because refs are widely different. You get two swings that look real big, and even if they clatter off the guard, if the fighter isn't doing anything, you might get a TKO. So I understand how hard it is, but in hindsight, with me in my comfortable chair here, it was a terrible decision.
Yeah, it's not like when she's punching, she's getting like a video game bar showing her energy, like, okay, 5 more punches and it's over, so she didn't get that. But yeah, they get to a point where you're like, okay, she's starting to defend more, she's starting to, like, move her hips and get herself in a better position. That's when you let her back up. Another thing I kind of should have said this in the beginning, really surprised that if you look at the scorecards, not a single judge went 10-8 round in the second,
which
really crazy.
A fight that could easily have been stopped, and one fighter took obvious fight-altering damage from the. I thought it was a pretty obvious 10-8 round. Again, the guideline is 10-8 rounds should be the most lopsided 5% of rounds. Like, that was, I mean, that was in my most lopsided 5% of rounds that didn't end up getting stopped. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lemos had, extremely poor performance, get Willie Zhang. But, back in the win column, beating Dern. Again, I don't think it was the greatest showing, but, based on a former title challenger, I think we should probably match her up coming off a win over a ranked opponent. I'm going with the winner of Verna Jandiroba and Lippe Godinez.
Love that. It's two fighters that she hasn't fought yet, and both would make really interesting style matchups against her. Like, I like it.
Dern, I go Karolina Kovacevic. I mean, she's got to take a big step down in competition.
She has to take a big step down in competition. And you know what? If Dern slices right through Kovacevic, she's better than I think she is. If she's reduced to like pulling guard as like Kovacevic is jabbing her up at range, then I'll know she's exactly who I thought she was. I like that matchup. That one, by the way, Ninja Kitty would go over real well in the Sherdog forums as well. Kovacevic versus Dern.
Yeah. Before that, not Justin Taffa, but his brother Junior Taffa taking the fight on
like something from a bad martial arts movie.
Yeah.
Like in what other sport can you just, my brother's injured, so I'm going to step in against. Like, if he'd won the fight, it would have been like something that was too cheesy for Hollywood. But no, there was no Hollywood ending. There was a Hollywood beginning to this fight. But
yeah, well, it looked like with like So Marco Rogerio is like the bully in school, and he wants to beat up the bigger brother, but he can't find him, so he finds the little brother and just beats him up instead.
Yeah.
I'll a lot of credit to Tough for stepping up one day's notice. I saw everybody was giving that guy love for that. I mean, that's some ballsy thing, but I don't think enough people was also giving credit to Marcos Rogerio de Lima, who trained for one guy and it was like, yeah, I'll fight this guy too. So like he should get some credit too.
And while both guys are, I mean, they're brothers, they're pretty close in age, and they're both strikers by preference, they're very different in body type, and they're very different in their actual fighting approach. But it doesn't matter because nothing can stop Abu Dhabi, Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Like he's finally evolved to his final form where he realizes that he was meant to be a crushing topside grappler this whole time.
Yeah, but those kicks, dude. I mean,
dude,
this
fight was effectively over in 45 seconds.
Yeah. Once he started the kick of the leg, it was over, and it just was like that thing in life that just gets drawn way out. You're like, why can't this just be shorter? I would rather get kneed in the head than get calf kicked.
Oh, especially by someone swinging hams like Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Like, and it's like he has the legs of Parker Porter, but he like swings them faster. Like he's more of an athlete. Like Parker Porter isn't doing any like somersaults around the cage after he wins like De Lima was tonight.
Yeah, not a good look by Tafa too. Like I understand he took it out one day's notice, but he's still a kickboxer who got like throttled in the stand-ups, specifically with the kicks. He should have some kind of defense for that. Not a good showing, but De Lima picks up another win. Before that, the biggest favorite of the card, Rinya Nakamura took on Carlos Vieira, winning by unanimous decision. Nakamura looked okay. Like this is a guy who's a hyped up prospect, 2 fights in the UFC where he clearly wins, no controversy, anything like that. But I know he says that he broke his hand early in this fight, and if that's true, I'll give him a little bit of a pass. But dude, he was a negative 1,300 favorite.
Dude,
I want better. I want him to get a stoppage there.
I would have liked a stoppage as well. What I will say in his defense is fighting Carlos Vieira, who tonight more than any other fight in his whole career looked like the Ryan Hall understudy that he is. It makes me think back to like 98, the year that baseball came back, that McGuire and Sosa, were both rushing for like headed towards 70 home runs, and he still a few times that season where you saw Mark McGuire go against a knuckleballer and he was just lucky to get something like fight something off his hands and get a little looping single when he was just crushing everybody, else 550 feet. Fighting someone like Ryan Hall or Carlos Vieira, it's like facing a knuckleballer. Like on some level, you just got to be glad that you survived and advanced.
Yeah,
because there are better fighters than Vieira. I was going to say there are better fighters than Vieira that Nakamura will go on to smash, but no, he's already smashed better fighters than Carlos Vieira. Vieira is the type of tricky and sticky that it's tough to look great against. Like not everybody can do the Topuria versus Ryan Hall thing. Like early on, he was clearly stymied. Like he didn't like that Nakamura was like spinning for his leg every time he got him down. And for what it's worth, Vera's self-sacrifice throw of the spinning hook kick is a lot faster than Hall's. Like he almost caught him on the chin with one of his spinning kicks. But as the fight went on, Nakamura started to become a little more aware of what he actually had to worry about, could no-sell the rest of it, and he just kind of put it in cruise control. Like it's not satisfying. I still want him to prove things to me in his next fight, but survive in advance. He won all 3 rounds. He was never in trouble.
Yeah, Vera had a better spin kick because I know he has a Taekwondo background. He said something like, I think he was in the Olympics or something, or he was like that.
He was an Olympic hopeful.
Okay.
From Ecuador.
Okay,
and,
like I was Olympic. I was
lived in Ecuador for a couple of years.
Wrestling. I was like Olympic hopeful in wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't go to the Olympic qualifier or anything like that, but I was hopeful I would one day make it.
I'm an Olympic hopeful right now in curling because that sounds like a lot of fun. I want to be the guy that like uses the brooms. Anyway, and even if he went to the Olympic trials, it's from Ecuador. It's a country that has like 10 million people and is not a particular hotbed for martial arts. You notice there's like 3 Ecuadorian fighters in the UFC right now, you
What if
know, and
what if all 10 million do taekwondo though?
they don't, dude. I've lived there. I can tell you,
No,
they don't.
no, not all
Yeah,
10 million.
no.
9 million.
Ecuador Taekwondo versus Kentucky Judo Federation. As much as we're down on the Kentucky Judo Federation, in the absence of serious cross training, I'm going to favor the ground fighters. So give me, yeah, Kentucky Judo Federation
No,
to take
I'm
those.
taking Ecuador taekwondo. Let's go, boys.
They're going to come flying out of the trees like the enemies in like Ninja Gaiden. All right,
I'll say this, but Vera, I mean, the dude's shoulder pops out in the fight. His opponent's a negative 1,300 favorite. He's a grappler who wants to get the fight down, but he's going against a world champion. And the most
you went mute.
sorry, you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The most interesting part of the entire fight, I think, was Joe Rogan going like love for BJJ, and then by the end of it, Michael Bisping is just bashing BJJ. So that was fun. Before that, Brenton Ribeiro took on Mingyang Zhang, two UFC newcomers, with Zhang getting a first round knockout. Really good. Gets in the he had to get by the 6-inch reach advantage of Ribeiro. Got in the pocket, landed a big, huge shot, put him out cold. This dude has won 10 straight fights in the first round, a lot of them by knockout. Yeah, I mean, it's light heavyweight, so it's an easier division. But I mean, what do you think of this guy? You think he can make a run?
I have no idea based on what we've seen. The good news is that his physique looks way better than it did. It looks better than it did 2 years ago when we last saw him. It looks way better than it did 5 or 6 years ago when he was losing to bad fighters on Chinese regional scenes. He's 25 and he's got some physical tools. That's all I'm willing to say right now.
Yeah, I like that he's 25. I mean, I like that he's a Chinese fighter who's in a bigger weight class. Like that's so rare.
Yeah.
So I like that. Always 25. I mean, he got knockout in his UFC debut. Couldn't ask for a better way to make your UFC debut. Before that, Josh Quinlan took on also UFC newcomer Danny Barlow. Barlow winning by third round TKO. Again, Barlow, another guy who claims he had his arm broke and he had to fight mostly one arm. I think that's maybe why we saw so many flying knees. Like he did a lot of flying knees when I watched tape study on, but it was like more than ever. It was like every 10 seconds he was throwing a flying knee. It's a really tough division, obviously, welterweight. But I like a lot what I've seen in Barlow. Like I could see this guy maybe putting it together, and I mean, he's very young and raw, and but he's got those God-given tools. He's fast, he's accurate, he's long, powerful, he's creative in the way he attacks. So he's a guy that, like, as a prospect, like I'm putting a little star on. Like might be like a little sleeper in the division.
Completely agree. It's welterweight, so anybody has got one hell of a long climb.
Sure.
But I think that's a perfect way to put it. Putting a little star on him. Like next time he fights, whether it's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, okay. I like him better than insert name of other guy here. Yeah, interesting stuff. Uncoachable tools. And while there are lots of reasons that you can kind of laugh at Josh Quinlan, like changing your nickname to Bushido, like after failing a drug test,
I'll give Quinlan props in the third round. Like the reason why he got knocked out, he's down, 2-0, and he went out on a shield. He was trying to get the knockout. Like it's better than just losing a decision or something. He went out swinging, and when you do that, you overextend and you just run into shots. And Barlow, I mean, he ran into a step back left hand. I like Barlow moving forward. Before that, Val Woodburn took on Oban Elliott, with Elliott winning a unanimous decision. Dude, Woodburn is bad. He's bad on the feet, bad on the ground. He's not UFC level. I mean, he was let's call a spade a spade. He got brought in because Bo Nickel needed a last minute opponent, and he was brought in to save Bo Nickel from then taking him off the card. Dude's not good.
Completely agree. And even his physical tools are not as great as you would expect them to be from taking a look at him. He doesn't leverage them well. Like honestly, I like Oban Elliott, but would have been nice to see even more out of him here than we saw. I agree. Like Woodburn, he was like probably the best welterweight in Florida's third best promotion.
Yeah.
Shout out Combat Night.
Ninja Kitty says jobber like the old WWE days. You bring in the Brooklyn Brawler and Iron Mike Sharp and stuff. Is that what he is? Oh, that's great. That's great. Nice job, Ninja Kitty. Elliot is better on the mic than he is in the cage. Like he's got a I don't want to say good story. It's a terrible story, but a compelling story with the sad run, all the odds against him. Really fun when he gets on the mic, says some fun stuff, but I didn't feel good about his performance. His contender series matchup was a really fun fight. So how he got in, but you go against a guy that is clearly overmatched. You have dominant position for long periods in all 3 rounds, and you can't get it finished. Like, yeah, it's not a good show, man. Good that you got UFC win, but I'm not feeling good about you moving forward.
Agreed. I hate to go 100% by the eyeball test here, but a 26-year-old whose nose looks like that is not a future champ at 170.
Don't tell the Jack Della Maddalena.
Well, I've already said that the UFC needs to find out who did that to Jack Della Maddalena's nose and sign them. Like that's your real future champ.
Maybe that's how Woodburn got in. Maybe he caught Maddalena like some back alley
with what, a car door? Like no, Elliot at best I think will settle into the role of a guy that wins 2 fights to lose 1, sticks around for a long time, picks up a good number of bonuses. He falls into that category of Alex Oliveira, Nico Price, maybe Alex Morono is turning into that type of fighter. Yeah, that's
I think it's a little much lower. I think it might be win 1, lose 2.
Well, then it won't last that long.
Yeah, I mean,
the problem for me is the fight IQ thing, because the disparity in their ground games was so great. Is like, how did Woodburn land a single strike after the first round? And he almost didn't, but you know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah, I don't know if he did, but he almost. How do you almost land some strikes? Before that, Andrea Lee took on Miranda Maverick in the curtain jerker of the night when Miranda Maverick won a unanimous decision. I think Maverick did some really fun things. I thought Joe. I'm not the biggest Joe Rogan commentator guy, fan of his commentator. I thought he was good in this one. Like, he kept talking about the range management of Miranda Maverick. I think he was dead on. Like, her ability to get in and get out was a good thing. But I also think the way when she got in, what she did, she mixed her attacks high and low. She was mixing in takedowns and then going upstairs, using her takedowns to set up her shots upstairs and the vice versa to get some takedowns. The problem, I still don't like her single strikes. A lot of still loading up, and I think she telegraphs. Lee, I mean, I don't want to see she's a shot fighter because she's lost 4 fights in a row. But even how she lost, like we talk about women's MMA and we say, like, oh, they like to do like kid stuff, like headlocks and stuff. And she was, she hit a Peterson. One, almost kind of hit a Peterson, kind of hit an annihilator, like the youth wrestling move. Like, that was a fun stuff. She hit a suplex, which was fun. But that's where our highlights in 15 minutes. So 3 things I said.
This fight was just so not good. Yeah, multiple headlock throw attempts. The fact that she ended up on top out of one of them is more to the detriment of Maverick's status than
I agree.
Points in Lee's favor. Lee is what she is, and what she is someone who always looks like she's in the fight, but just can't pull it off against even mid-level UFC flyweights. And that's saying a lot, because the UFC flyweight division is not good.
Yeah, and she just doesn't look UFC level anymore. I mean, she looks like she should be on like a cutout in a Buc-ee's selling like beef jerky, like a pretty girl eating a beef jerky. Like, that's they're not insulting. Like, it takes some talent to do that, but just not UFC anymore.
Agreed. And at 35, it's not going to get any better.
No, no. In fairness, everything at Buc-ee's gets better though. Buc-ee's is great if you're in Texas.
Oh yeah.
So there you guys have it. We've done all 12 fights. Let's get some fun stuff. Do we have the awards, Ben?
Awards. I'm sure we do. Let's see here.
I'm gonna go throw some more out. Fight of the night, Paulo Costa, Rob Whittaker. Performance, Topuria is getting a performance bonus. I don't know who the other one. There's a couple other ones. Maybe Hernandez. I'll go Hernandez.
Right. Yeah. Okay. We have a fight of the night and 2 performances of the night. If you're listening to this, you probably already know who won. So instead of guessing, just let us know whom you would give those awards to if you happen to disagree.
So yeah, I'd go fight of the night. I'd go Whittaker Costa. Performances, I'll go Topuria for sure, and I'll go Hernandez.
All right.
Do you agree with them? What would you go before you tell us what they were?
Oh, there were 3 performances of the night, so you can give out one more.
I'll go Zhang.
Okay, beautiful. I agree with you on that, and the UFC agrees with you on that. Topuria, Hernandez, and Zhang are your 3 performance of the night winners. I'm not happy with the fight of the night. They gave it to Lemos versus Dern.
Okay, that was a good fight, though.
It was a good fight, but I thought Whittaker and Costa was an excellent fight.
Yeah, that's surprising because usually the higher you're up on the card, the more likely you're going to win.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not mad that the bonus went to some people further down the card for whom it is probably more significant money, but I won't watch Lemos versus Dern again until I have to do study on either of them, and maybe not even then. Whereas I could see rewatching the co-main event tomorrow, just in the middle of the day while I'm doing other stuff.
Yeah, like Dern and Lemos, you can take a couple notes on it while you're watching live, and you sum it up. You're not going to like learn more stuff when you're watching. Yeah. Kind of got sidetracked, but let's talk about this very briefly. Thoughts on Wanderlei Silva, the axe murderer, going to the UFC Hall of Fame?
Makes me happy. I think the UFC Hall of Fame is a joke. It is still just based too much on Dana White's personal grudges against people. Sure. I at this point now, Jens Pulver is finally in. So he apparently was just a forgotten rather than a hated man. But as long as Frank Shamrock, one of the greatest fighters and most important figures in the sport, arguably the first true mixed martial artist, is not in there just because he and Dana hate each other, it's a joke. Nonetheless,
yeah, you think like this time and get over it, but yeah,
broken clock, right, twice a day. You know, congratulations to Silva, who, yeah, one of the greatest fighters of all time, one of the most entertaining fighters of all time, absolute one of a kind. Yeah, good stuff.
Apparently, we said Ilia had no chance after recapping the Emmett fight. I'd like to see that because we both said this is as close a fight as possible on paper, but somehow maybe Bob Simpson is mixing up with somebody else, or he's just trolling like always.
Or maybe he's right, and we just had a horrible take on it after that fight. Who knows? Like, it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, it would be the first time. So, let's blame it on somebody else who recaps it. Let's talk about Wanderlei really briefly again. Yeah, MMA Hall of Fame. You know, considering UFC the MMA Hall of Fame. Yeah, absolutely. Someone asked me about my grandchildren or some guy just getting in the sport and they're like, hey, this Wanderlei Silva guy, like, tell me about him. One of the most intimidating fighters of all time. He was at least the face of Pride, if not the face of MMA to hardcores.
Yeah.
But definitely the face of Pride. When I think about the sport of MMA, I always think of the, what I would consider more the good side of it, the competitive nature, the great athleticism. But there's also that other side that we don't talk about as much, and that's that pure, like, violence, like meanness. Well, Wanderlei's that. He was probably the most violent fighter ever. He had no problem soccer kicking your face into the third row, had some all-time wars and knockouts and moments. And yeah, There was a time. I would guess if you talk about the Sherdog forums all time, what fight, when they do dream matchups, what dream matchup was brought up more than any fight in history? I'm gonna guess Vanderlei Silva versus Chuck Liddell before obviously it happened.
I agree, and it happened, a couple of years past its best buy date for both guys.
But it was like
no.
the number one topic for 3 years or something like that.
Agreed. Like, if it had happened in 2005, the year we finally got Fedor versus Krokop, I mean, it might not have turned out to be a better fight, but it would have pushed it out of the headlines. Like Chuck versus Vanderlei was the fight to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was not a fight for a 3-4 year period. It was a bigger fight than like when, and I know I'm sorry who posted the Porter Baines who said I want to fuck Chuck with his broken English.
Beautiful.
People, it's funny, but people have no idea how big that moment is when we're announced we're going to get Chuck and Vanderlei. Like, holy shit. Like, that was okay. For example, if we could take UFC 300 and throw it 2005, like you said, and the big breaking news right now, when was Vanderlei Silva's coming over from Pride and fighting Chuck Liddell, that would have blown our mind. Like, that would have been the big announcement. Like, holy shit, we're finally getting it. So, congratulations to the Axe Murder. Well deserved. Let's get to the cut list. How many names do you have for the cut list?
Oh, for the cut list, I have 1, 2. I have just 2.
Okay. So the way the cut list works, if both me and Ben have the same name of a losing fighter, or it doesn't actually have to be a losing fighter, but 99% of the time is a losing fighter. If we both suggest the same name, we give the UFC permission to cut them to make room for other fighters. Ben has 2. I had 3, so we'll see who got saved. I had Andrea Lee.
I have Andrea Lee. I'm with you.
She lost 4 fights in a row.
4 in a row, 7 of her last 9. Like, she might not have.
There's a lot of Buckies out there. They need to get the pictures. Maybe eating like a ham sandwich or some pulled pork sandwich or something like that. My other one, this one, he only has 2 losses in the UFC, but in one of them was extremely short notice. If I saw any potential, I'd probably keep him around, but it's just not there. Why like prolong the inevitable? I'd get rid of Val Woodburn.
I'm completely on board with that. That was my other one. I wish I had kept track of who said it, but Woodburn has to go unless the UFC decides they want to give him to Joe Pyfer as a bounce back fight. Like, if that's what Valentine Woodburn is going to be for you, then get your money's worth.
Nice stuff. Yeah.
And nice honestly, that might end up being the ugliest of the 3.
Nice job.
Just because Pyfer's mean.
Yeah, Pyfer is mean. So the person that you saved, he's only 0-1 in the UFC, but it was a terrible performance, and he actually lost. He actually lost on the Ultimate Fighter show. So I get rid of Carlos Vera.
Carlos Vera heads back to 50-50 BJJ in Falls Church, Virginia, and goes on to prosper. All right.
Yeah. But Ben did save him. So
well, if you cut him, then the only Ecuadorians left in the UFC are Chito Vera and Michael Morales. That might mean that Ecuador, on a fighter by fighter basis, is actually the best country for UFC.
Yeah, graded on a curve.
Yeah.
In fairness, they're gonna have a lot more fighters because of all my Ecuadorian Taekwondo risers coming through. So there'll probably be a lot more coming. Let's do dude seriously. Do you have any dude seriouslys?
I have one dude seriously. And okay, as soon as Carlos Vera got in there against a former U23 world champ wrestler and threw a spinning back kick, I put it in my dude seriously column. And then when he did it 5 more times, I'm like, has he crossed all the way over out of stupid into like somehow smart again? Like, would Nakamura have finished the fight by now if he wasn't terrified?
He made full orbit around.
Like, he's like,
we just watched I mean, it's going way back. Why we watched this old movie? We watched Apollo 13 with the kids the other day, and like they couldn't just turn around the ship. Like they had to go all the way around the moon. Like that's the way. Like it doesn't seem right, but if you keep going, it actually works out that you come back. That's what he was trying to do.
Jade Bunky has my other one here. During the Marab versus Cejudo fight, the crowd started chanting USA. Like, I can only guess they did that because some of them thought Marab was Mexican. I don't I don't know what else to say about it.
All right, I got some dude. Seriously, Oban Elliott quoting Ric Flair after he beat Val Woodburn. Be the man, you got to beat the man. Yeah, that's fun. The only difference is Ric Flair would have stopped Val Woodburn, even 80-year-old Ric Flair.
Yeah, 80-year-old Ric Flair would have just sold it enough to like blade himself and be bleeding like a champ, like from the forehead. But then he would have put away Woodburn. Yeah. Yes.
This one's a little more serious. It's still going on. Michael Bisping mentioning they talked about Oban Elliott's dad dying, and then Michael Bisping said like, yeah, he committed suicide, and like, dude, that wasn't really necessary. Like, it the point was already taken that this guy had a terrible run. You didn't have to add in how his dad died.
Or if you're going to, then make some kind of point about it. Talk about it for 10 seconds longer and share the number of a helpline. Don't just like note it and then okay, on to the next fight. I agree. That was pretty bad.
It's like when you get the asshole who's like, if someone posts on Facebook like, oh my god, Susan died. And like, if Susan died in a car crash, they would mention that in the car crash. Mm-hmm. If they don't say how she died, it's usually suicide or drug overdose. And then you get that one person like, how did he die? It's like, man, I can't kind of use common sense, you know? Or they died of cancer and say, oh, she lost her battle of cancer or something. I'm assuming Oban Elliott does, he has a meeting with the company. I'm sure he talked about it openly. It just, I don't know. It just seems so like it wasn't necessary to the story.
Agreed. Like be all the way out or all the way in, Bisping. Like leave it alone or make some sort of salient point.
Yeah, dude, seriously. I'm just, I'm gonna go a little out of order because my last one is my favorite. Maybe one of my favorite Dude Seriously ever. Dude Seriously, Mackenzie Dern. When they announced Amanda Lemos win and she raises her hand thinking she won. When they said Amanda, she's like, yeah. Oh, dude, seriously.
Well, I mean, it's a well understood and documented phenomenon that she's been trying as hard as she possibly can to embrace her Brazilian side.
Yeah.
Acting surprised at the decision is very, very Brazilian.
I heard someone tweet out that she forgot that she knows how to speak English again, and that's what's going on. All right. I got two more. Ilia Topuria, like, you had a brilliant night, but then calling out Conor, like when he's not fighting and he's like at least 2, maybe even 3 weight classes above you. Like, dude, seriously, come on.
It's the I'm going to Disneyland moment for anybody who wins a fight in the UFC between 145 and 185 pounds. Like they used to ask the winning Super Bowl quarterback. That's what it is. Like he just throwing it out there. The guy who said that nobody in this division is worthy of facing me wants a piece of Conor McGregor who has earned shit.
So hey, shoot your shot. It's always good to shoot your shot. But that said, that wasn't the worst call out. This is even better.
So good.
Imagine you're at the bar. Like, this is your friend. Like, he went to a bar and he like picked up a girl once, so he's feeling good. And he's like, I got my lucky shirt on. I'm feeling good. I'm gonna pick up the hottest girl in the bar tonight. And we're like, yeah, dude, you're the man, dude. You're confident. You got things going for you. Cool. And Scarlett Johansson walks in the bar, and he's like, I'm going for it. That's what your boy Ming Yang Zhang did in his call out. He wins his UFC debut against a UFC, another guy making his UFC debut. He not only called for a title.
It's like asking Scarlett Johansson to go out with you on her birthday or something.
But this is the best thing. He doesn't just call for a title shot. He calls for a title shot of the main event of UFC 300. Dude, seriously? Hey, you know what? Maybe next time we see Zhang, we got Scarlett Johansson in the crowd for him. Something else.
Oh
Who knows? Or he's like the guy's at the Super Bowl and he sees Taylor Swift and he's like, she's kind of cute. Maybe I could make a move after boyfriend just like won the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl.
I mean, remember when Julian Marquez like choked out Maki Patolo and asked Miley Cyrus for a date? Like
Yeah,
that was a reach, but not an off the charts reach. And I think he kind of fumbled it. Otherwise, like I think he could have actually like gotten like at least a brief date that had a photo of the two of them. And that like this is several universes away from that. Like that is one unrealistic mother effer over there in Zhang Mingyang.
yeah. Poor Leon Edwards is like won the title, defended it a bunch of times, had this crazy run, and like, no one's like, nobody wants to see you headline UFC 300. But Mingyang Zhang is trying to not only be on, think about all the people in the last 3 or 4 months who've called for fights on UFC 300, and this dude's calling for the main event. Dude, I'm telling you, this might be my favorite dude, seriously, ever.
It was
Good
great.
Good for him. That dude's great. I want to root for that guy forever now. All right, I think I'm getting a little punch drunk as it gets late. All right, let's go to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and Bears are stock market reference. You want to be on the Bulls list, you don't want to be on this list. We'll do it 3, 2, 1. Do you want to go positive or you want to go negative?
Why don't we stay negative? We've been making fun of people for a few minutes now.
All right. Ben, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Bears. Mackenzie Dern. This was the best chance she was going to have to beat as good a fighter as Amanda Lemos, probably for the rest of her career.
Yeah.
And Dern is somebody that low key the UFC would fast track to a title shot as quickly as possible if she gave them any excuse to do so. Like just to be on the speed dial. Like, I mean, she could have gotten there by beating Lemos and it wasn't quite enough. Like I knew we had already seen Dern's ceiling in terms of like kind of her skill set. Like, I don't think at this point she's going to get any better, but this was her ceiling in terms of actual reach in the division. She only got this fight on short notice. She made it closer than I expected it to be, and it still wasn't quite enough. I will throw in there Henry Cejudo. I mean, even though he looked better than I expected him to, even though he was super competitive against Merab, who, again, you and I both think is the best guy in the world at that weight class, Cejudo, even more so than Dern, as a former 2-time champ, he has one of the fastest tracks imaginable to a title shot. Like, he'd be fighting the winner of O'Malley Varanex if he'd won tonight. And instead, maybe we see him retire and never fight again. Like it's rough that it came to an end that way. Number one, I hate going for the real obvious one, but Alexander Volkanovski just lost for the first time ever at featherweight. It was uncontroversial. It was frankly disturbing. It was a bad knockout, his second bad knockout in a row. And all of a sudden we are talking, instead of, is he the best fighter pound for pound on the planet, to does he need to kind of rethink where his career goes from here? How many fights does he even have left? The fall doesn't get much harder and faster than that.
Yeah, they're actually my top 3 Bears exactly. So I will add 3 more. But as you're talking, with them announcing that Alex Bahia versus Jamal Hill is the main event, I just thought, you know what? That is his weight class. Stay ready, buddy. Stay ready. Maybe one of them falls out last minute. You know, it could happen. It could happen. It could be like a Joe Soto type moment. So I'll add 3 new ones. I'm gonna go with leg locks, knee bars, heel hooks, all that stuff. We had Carlos Ferreira going for him, Mackenzie Dern. They don't work. which is at this point just make them illegal because they just don't work. My number 2, Texans Owen. I'm gonna go with Andrew Lee. She's on a 4-fight losing streak. Not just that she's on a 4-fight streak.
Oh no, she's Louisiana's now. They can have
Oh,
her.
no. She said across the border. So when she first came to the UFC, and that's been a while now, but she had a little bit of buzz on her. I mean, coming in from the regional scene, had a run. I mean, she's obviously very pretty. She had the Texas thing going with the cowboy hat, marketable. But I mean, now she's opened up cars and losing 4 in a row. I mean, her stock has really fallen. And again, like you took my top 3. So how about Jeff Neal? Jeff Neal's lost 4 out of 6 fights. Like that's every time he gets one step forward, he at the top level, he takes another step right back. So Jeff Neal, not a good night. Let's go to the Bulls. These are the ones who had a great night. Again, we do a 3-2-1. I'm gonna go with my boy Anthony Hernandez. 5 in a row, maybe getting a main event next. And that guy's stock is flying through the roof. Number 2, I'm gonna go Ian Machado Gary. I mean, he got a win against a ranked opponent, but more of the reaction from the crowd where getting booed is still a good thing. He's fighting with the crowd, like he's enjoying the booing. He's kind of like going back at them, kind of doing a little bit like $1 Million Man type thing going on, talking down to the crowd. And number 1, I'm going to add 2 fighters together. It's just going to be Georgian MMA, the country of Georgia. Marab looks like the best 135 pounder in the world. Add on Ilia Topuria winning the title. I mean, Georgian MMA for just a little country that I couldn't find on freaking. If you gave me 60 seconds to find a globe, I ain't finding it. Hey, good for Georgia MMA, man. What, Ben? You any more?
You know what? You like grabbed ones that I would have grabbed. All I'm going to throw in there is Marco Sergio de Lima. He has been a laughingstock. Like we have both accused him of having maybe the worst ground game in the entire UFC. I mean, I still, well, before it was just like, does this guy have the worst ground game in the UFC period? Because he was a kickboxer who would never take the fight to the ground. So anytime it went there, he looked like an inverted turtle. Now I'm not saying he's any great chop on the ground, but if he falls on top of you, you're in deep shit. And at 36, he has a whole other decade to continue to refine his game if he wants. I will also add in Robert Whittaker. Like, yeah, he's still undersized. And yeah, where he is now, like having lost a couple fights, by knockout, he's just 1 loss away from us probably talking about him like we are about Volkanovski now. But damned if he still isn't hanging around there, one of the 5 best middleweights on the earth with just no good reason like to be, except for his incredible toughness, underrated athleticism, and a brilliantly put together game to be able to like do what he does against bigger opponents. Good night for Robert Whittaker.
All right. I already gave my grade. I said it was like a B. So what's your overall grade for the card?
Overall grade for the card? I like it as a B as well. We had a couple of very good fights. We had some stunning finishes, had a couple of fun and memorable moments that we'll be talking about anytime those fighters fight, for the remainder of their careers. A couple of really good prospects showing out, some other ones, with questions still about them. Pretty much everything I want out of a pay-per-view. I mean, it wasn't an A, it wasn't a candidate for fight of the year, but it's definitely a B.
I know. I think Jade Bulkey was at the event, so cool for him. He must have had a really good time. He gave it an A. So I know it sounded like it was a pretty good crowd.
He's huffing some of whatever Zhang Mingyang has. Like they got that same plastic bag with like some solvent and like paint thinner on the bottom.
Always the hardest question of the night. Who is your listener of the evening?
I feel bad. I shouldn't do this because it was a fantastic night. Anthony Tardif was amazing. Chris Wiz was amazing. Awesome to see Chase Thomas back in the chat. Great to see Portia Baines joining us and giving this award to this man again. I feel like he's becoming, like the Kansas City Chiefs of our chat. But RC Kim slew me several times
He's
here.
great. He's
Uh,
great.
uh, and then just wrapped it up with like a nice old school chef's kiss, talking about that young prospect Eric Silva and how he could, really turn the corner and become a top welterweight any minute now, even though I think he's 43 years old.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
go with
Dev, you don't count.
I'm gonna go with it's always like it's tough. The chat's great. I love it. It's honestly like the highlight of my week. This guy almost get as much promotion as Miranda Maverick's pickle business got tonight, but I'll go with Porter Barnes was really good too, but I'm gonna go with Jeff Jackson's Drunken LLC. He bashed the Rhode Island women, but his business is doing good. So I'll give it I'll give it to Jeff's Trucking.
Outstanding.
All right, there you guys have it. We have recapped all the fights, did some fun stuff at the end. We believe this is the most in-depth recap show, to be followed by the most in-depth preview show, which me and Ben does, which is even longer than this. We'll be back next week recapping UFC Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2.
Yep, UFC Mexico.
And we will be previewing that. It'll be out Monday morning, so make sure you check that out. We thank all the people in the chat. If you listen to this the next day, leave a comment, share, like, do all that stuff. We continue to try to grow this community. And I hope you guys enjoy the fights. We'll be back next week.
As Dev points out, it may not even be the best card happening next weekend. PFL versus Bellator champs event is going to be pretty wild.
Yeah, but I got to run. I have to be in a wrestling tournament in 4 hours.
Dude, get out of here.
And I was at a wrestling tournament all day today. I was sectionals. So see you guys.